Dining, cocktails, hiking, fun, there's lots to see and do. At temperatures 30 to 40 degrees cooler than the valley floor, the Palm Springs Aerial Tramway is the world's largest rotating tramway. For more information, visit pstramway.com. Open Road Radio, Monday night at 6 on KSHP, North Las Vegas, AM and FM, K29, 6HP, North Las Vegas, and KSHP.com.
The views and opinions expressed in the following program are those of the program's participants and do not necessarily reflect those of station staff, management, and advertisers.
All right, what's happening, everybody? Welcome. It is Pushing the Limits on a Tuesday. Thank you so much for joining us. You could be watching on the Occupy Democrats Network, of course, the Washington Press Network, my personal YouTube page, at PTL Radio Show. We're on Twitch, we're on TikTok, we're on X, and, of course, the FM AM dial right here in Las Vegas. Appreciate you being a part of the show, and, boy, we have another jam-packed show lined up for you today. Coming up here in just a few minutes, you've seen him on The Daily Show, The Colbert Report. He's a contributor to MSNBC and CNN, and a very funny comedian. Pete Dominic will be joining us coming up here in just a few minutes. Oh, yeah, and we are going to be talking about some of Donald Trump's hires, cabinet members, for lack of a better term, including Marco Rubio, Little Marco. Boy, we have some interesting audio to play from you from Marco. The puppy dog killer, Kristi Noem. Yes, that's right, she murders puppies. Mike Huckabee. I'm sorry, excuse me, I misspoke. Mike Huckabee. Apparently, he's going to be the ambassador to Israel, the guy who believes ballots should be replaced with bullets. He said that if Donald Trump lost the election. That'd be a great ambassador to Israel, right? Nobody better to talk about peace in the Middle East than Mike Huckabee. And the list goes on and on and on. Mike Waltz, who, in my opinion, is a neocon and a warmonger, worked for Dick Cheney, by the way. It's funny, all these Republicans out there that can't stand Dick Cheney because he endorsed Kamala Harris, but yet it's totally okay with Donald Trump to hire somebody who worked with Dick Cheney. It's just unbelievable. The ambassador to the United States, Stefanik, who basically called E. Jean Carroll a liar and blamed the media for Donald Trump being a liable sexual abuser. We'll get to that in a little bit. And, of course, Tom Homan, the guy who wants to literally deport everybody, Stephen Miller, uses similar verbiage to Adolf Hitler. I mean, the list goes on and on here, ladies and gentlemen, and I got to be honest with you, it's getting worse. I think his administration is going to be worse than I even thought. And that is hard to deal with, hard to accept. But he won the presidency, and I suppose he can hire whoever the hell he wants to. How long is Marco Rubio going to be in there, by the way? I think I'd like some gambling over-unders on that one. I don't think Marco Rubio is going to last. Of all the people that he mentioned, all the morons that wear the Donald Trump knee pads, and Marco Rubio has been kissing his ass now for several years, knowing that he wanted a position in the Trump administration. And we'll get to some audio a little bit later on in the program. But I don't think Marco Rubio is going to last there very long. Little Marco. I don't know. We'll see about that. And I don't know if you've seen the latest video that's come out. I put some stuff out on social media about this. Donald Trump now wants reparations for white people. Yes, that's right. He doesn't want any equality when it comes to college campuses. He wants reparations for white people because, you know, white people are the ones that have been the victims, right? White people are the ones that have been gone after by others because of the color of our skin, right? I mean, does anybody actually believe this? Unless you are a right-wing bigot, or just a bigot in general, unless you are a right-wing buffoon, bigoted in nature, is there anybody out there that thinks that white people should get reparations? Is there anybody out there that actually thinks that? I got to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, and I've been saying this every day since Donald Trump won the election, that I think the country's in a lot of trouble. I really do. For a lot of different reasons. But this is just the start. of some of the people, the 6 or 7 people, the high-profile people that he's hired. This is just the start. And I'm not trying to scare you. I'm just being honest with you. Project 2025 is being implemented and people are being put in place as we speak. This is what's happening here. And it's not a joke. I'm not trying to make a joke. It's not funny. This is the reality of the situation. And this is the reality when you put somebody like this back in office. This is what you get. You get these types of unserious people. You get these kinds of people that I believe personally are very dangerous to this country. I believe Donald Trump is very dangerous to this country. And it's sad. It's unfortunate. But is there anybody in this country that is not a racist, that is not a bigot, that thinks that we should have reparations for white people? Is there anybody in this country that has an IQ over 20, that has some common sense and doesn't have hatred in their heart, that thinks that white people are the victims in this country, that thinks that white people are the ones that deserve reparations, and while minorities and black people and brown people do not? Is there anybody out there that actually believes that? Listen, I'll be the first person to admit I'm not always for reparations for anybody. But as I've always said to myself, white people are not the people that have been oppressed in this country. Okay? No one's ever had to follow me in an electronics store thinking that I would steal something because of the color of my skin. I've never been pulled over by a cop because of the color of my skin. I don't think I've ever been treated unfairly because of the color of my skin, because I'm white. So, ladies and gentlemen, as I've said before, and I say again, we're in a lot of trouble in this country. And I'm going to go through, one by one, the people in this country I believe are dangerous, and Donald Trump has already put some of them in his administration. And I want to go through one by one with you right now. So, Marco Rubio, it appears as though he is going to be the Secretary of State. It appears that way from what we've heard. And the Trump officials have not confirmed or denied it. Rumors have been breaking out that he is going to be the next Secretary of State. So this wasn't that long ago where Marco Rubio had this to say when he was running against Donald Trump for President of the United States. Have a listen to this.
There is no way we are going to allow a con artist to take over the conservative movement, and Donald Trump is a con artist.
So what do you think a Trump government would look like, Senator?
It would be chaos. No one knows, but it would look probably like the positions he's held for all these years on many of these issues. He is wholly unprepared to be president of the United States. He refuses to answer questions on any specific public policy. He has no plan for health care, for example. They asked him about the debt. He claimed he's going to cut the debt by cutting fraud and abuse, which everyone acknowledges, and he didn't get any follow-up or any press on that, and nobody pressed him on that afterwards. I tried to get the moderators to ask him about it. This is the most important government job on the planet. We're about to turn over the conservative movement to a person that has no ideas of any substance on the important issues, the nuclear codes of the United States, to an erratic individual. Yeah. And the conservative movement to someone who has spent a career sticking it to working people.
He has taken his entire career sticking it to working people. And now all of a sudden Marco Rubio has taken a liking to Donald Trump because he's a two-faced phony. And this is the guy that Donald Trump has, said a lot of disparaging things about as well. Well, Donald Trump just hired him as Secretary of State. This was when Marco Rubio again was running for President of the United States. And he was holding a rally, and this is when they were going back and forth, and just a few other things that Marco Rubio's had to say about Donald Trump.
You compared Donald Trump to a third world dictator yesterday in an interview with the New York Times. How so?
Well, I don't know about a dictator. I said a third world strongman. He's running for president, so no matter what, he won't be a dictator unless our republic completely crumbles, which I don't anticipate it will. But yeah, here's what happens in many countries around the world. You have a leader that emerges and basically says, don't put your faith in yourselves, don't put your faith in society, put your faith in me. I'm a strong leader, and I'm going to make things better all by myself. This is very typical. You see it in the third world. You see it a lot in Latin America for decades. It's basically the argument he's making that he single-handedly is going to turn the country around. We've never been that kind of country. We have a president. The president is an American citizen who serves for a period of time, constrained by the constitutions and the powers vested in that office. The president works for the people, not the people for the president. And if you listen to the way he describes himself and what he's going to do, he's going to single-handedly do this and do that without regard for whether it's legal or not. Look, I think people are going to have to make up their mind. I can tell you this, no matter what happens in this election, for years to come, there are many people on the right, in the media, and voters at large that are going to be having to explain and justify how they fell into this trap of supporting Donald Trump, because this is not going to end well one way or the other.
This is not going to end well one way or the other. You know, the only time you'll hear these right-wing idiots that are in Washington tell the truth is when they're actually running against somebody. That's the only time you'll ever hear a Marco Rubio tell the truth. Same thing with Ted Cruz and many others when they were running against Donald Trump. Marco Rubio knows who Donald Trump is. But ladies and gentlemen, the next Secretary of State under Donald Trump, Marco Rubio. And then there's Tom Homan, the border czar. And I've talked about how they're already implementing Project 2025. And Tom Homan was one of those people who helped put Project 2025 together. This guy.
I'll make you this promise. If he comes back, I come back. And it's not going to be nice.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
I'm telling you, folks, you got my word. I shook his hand in Mar-a-Lago 2 weeks ago. I told him if he comes back, I come back. And we will fix this shit. I'm telling you.
How about the guy laughing in the background? Yeah, because that's the way a respected individual speaks to a crowd, right? The guy who wants to deport everybody that is undocumented in this country. And, you know, Jessica Tarnoff, I admire her very much. She does a great job on Fox News in what is a very difficult position, sitting next to a bunch of morons. And she talked about this. She talked about how Donald Trump claimed that he wanted to separate himself from Project 2025. He has absolutely nothing to do with it. He's hiring a bunch of people that helped put Project 2025 together, and she speaks about it beautifully.
I do want to say something, though, about Tom Homan.
Mm-hmm.
So for everyone who said Trump doesn't know what Project 2025 is, he just put a key contributor in charge of this. And Tom Homan was interviewed on 60 Minutes, and he was asked, is there a way to carry out mass deportation without separating families? And he said, of course there is. Families can be deported together. He also said that it didn't mean if someone was coming to be, quote unquote, rounded up and grandma was in the house and she's undocumented, that it didn't necessarily mean that grandma wouldn't be taken to. And you can say Donald Trump has a mandate till you're blue in the face. Taking grandma is not what people were voting for. They were voting for criminals to be kicked out of this country.
Yeah, Jessica's absolutely 150% correct. Notice how everybody was quiet on the set because she's an intelligent woman who speaks truth to fiction. She has to sit next to that moron, Jesse Waters, and Judge Jeanine, that lush, just some really bad people with no credibility. And there's a lot of people in this country, and some are saying, well, look at the Latino vote. You got half of the Latino vote. Well, this is why. Listen to this one Latino voter who believes Trump will not deport family-oriented Latinos. Now, obviously, he's wrong based on what everybody is saying, including his borders are. But I want you to listen to this ill-informed, uneducated person who voted for Donald Trump against his own interests.
If they let in hundreds or thousands of people who already have criminal records, if deporting them creates a mass deportation, I'm all for it.
But what if rounded up in all of that are people who work on a farm, they're doing the jobs that Americans don't want to do? Does that worry you?
That wouldn't be fair. Of course, they need to make sure that they don't throw away, they don't kick out, they don't deport people that are family oriented.
Obviously, Sky is a complete moron, voting against his own interests. Homan has already said that if you're in this country illegally, you're going to be deported. He's also said and asked, what about families and children that were born in this country legally? Are you going to separate families? Is there a way to do this without separating families? On 60 Minutes, his response was, yeah, there's a way. They can all leave too. And yet you have an uneducated, ill-informed Latino voter who believes Trump will not deport family-oriented people. Okay, let's see about that. Because according to everything that Tom Homan has said, that's not the case. Another ill-informed, uneducated voter who is voting against his own interest, in this case voting for Donald Trump. And then there's Miss Stefanik, who unfortunately I had the luxury of meeting, who is another two-faced phony who years ago was speaking out against Donald Trump and his bigotry and his racism and his sexism. But the moment she realized he has a chance to win, she decided to kiss his ass. And this is a situation where she's being questioned by a really good journalist named Vaughn Hilliard. Now, after this question, Hilliard, back in 2000, I believe it was 2020, Hilliard was not allowed to cover the Trump campaign anymore. That happened to me as well. And this good journalist is asking Stefanik about the E. Jean Carroll case, and I want you to listen. This is going to be the next ambassador to the United States. Listen to the way she defends Donald Trump in the liable sexual abuse case involving E. Jean Carroll.
Because he is polling ahead of Joe Biden, and Joe Biden is the weakest candidate we've ever seen. No, I disagree. No, I don't believe that. And I support President Trump. And you know what? The media is so biased. This is just another example of the media being...
Why not believe E. Jean Carroll? It's not me. It's not the media. It's a jury that found that he sexually abused E. Jean Carroll.
Again, the media is so out of touch with the American people. Like 2016, you are going to see the American people speak out loudly and clearly with their vote. We are so tired of the biased media shilling for Joe Biden every single day. And the reality is President Trump is going to win. He's going to restore rule of law, and he's going to restore respect for the Constitution in this country.
What a joke. And how about the handlers? Next question. Next question. Yeah, if you're gonna start bashing Joe Biden or Kamala Harris, you can talk for an hour. But if the media asks a question which is relevant about E. Jean Carroll, this was right after the end of the E. Jean Carroll case, she's blaming the media for the fact that Donald Trump was found liable of sexual abuse, the judge characterizing it as rape. And not only does she say, she doesn't believe E. Jean Carroll, but she's blaming the media for what happened in a courtroom, which is the dumbest thing you could ever hear. And here's another woman who was calling out Donald Trump years ago for his bigotry and his sexism, but has now no problem standing by him because he's the leader of the Republican Party and she wanted a job in his administration. Just like Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Don't even get me started with Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who has zero credibility, who has said a bunch of truthful things about Donald Trump and his lack of character, but ever since he had that meeting with Donald Trump, hasn't said one negative thing about Trump because he's another two-faced phony with no backbone who wanted to work within Donald Trump's administration, and it looks like that's going to happen. And then we go to Stephen Miller. And I played you some Stephen Miller audio yesterday, and the good liars who are very funny, and they call out the right-wing hypocrisy and the nonsense. Well, one of those guys from the Good Liars caught up with Stephen Miller. I want you to listen to this until the very end because this guy is now the Deputy Chief of Staff for Policy. Listen to this audio.
What were your thoughts on the debate, and what are your thoughts on Democrats saying that Republicans are weird?
It was a tremendous victory for President Trump. It was an incredible night. Victory on immigration, victory on the economy, victory on inflation, victory on Afghanistan, victory on Ukraine. Really an incredible night for President Trump where he laid out his vision to the American people and really made her own the record of the last 3.5 years.
You evaded the weird question. Don't want to harp on the weird thing because a lot of people have called you weird before. And
harping on it right now.
But even before Tim Walz said it, like a lot of people have been calling you weird. How do you respond to that? People saying that you make them a little uncomfortable and that people kind of get uneasy when they're around you.
Nothing's weirder than giving tampons to boys, as Tim Walz did.
That's actually not true. That it was fact checked. That's actually not true. Anyway, so that's not true. We fact checked it, and he does make people very uncomfortable. And I was very uncomfortable when I talk to him.
Yes, I don't blame him. Tim Walz is giving tampons to boys. That's actually not true. Notice how he didn't want to answer the question. Like, that guy gives me the heebie-jeebies, man. Stephen Miller, who, again, uses the same, this is important, uses the same language that Adolf Hitler used in the 30s. Ladies and gentlemen, Donald Trump's new Deputy Chief of Staff for Policy, Stephen Miller. Then we have Mike Waltz, no relation to Tim. Trump's next Secretary of Defense. And here's the kicker on this one. He's a former Dick Cheney advisor who supports more American troops in the Middle East, as well as direct military strikes against Iran. Most people on the right and the left would call him a neocon warmonger. Have a listen to Mike Waltz.
I think at this point, the only thing that is going to stop the Supreme Leader from his nuclear obsession is a very credible use and threat of military force. Look, nobody wants war, nobody wants a conflict, but this is about deterrence. And at this point, with Iran believing they are this close, remember, they have to have the fissile material, but also the ballistic missiles and the ability to weaponize it. I think this is the only thing that will stop him. And what does that mean? That means a very clear statement from the commander-in-chief. We did not get that in that press conference. But it also means credibly moving forces into the region, and it, most importantly, selling the Israelis, giving the Israelis the technical, sophisticated military equipment that they've been asking for and haven't been getting from this administration.
Doesn't this statement from the Supreme Leader that they can build a nuclear bomb if they want to right now, doesn't that sort of demand a response from the Biden administration?
Well, again, we get this, I think it demands a very clear response, in that when we say we will not allow Iran to have a bomb, what does that mean? What are we prepared to do to stop it? The Israelis are very clear, and we, one, need to be clear alongside them, but two, need to be clear to the region that we will support Israel if they have to take action.
Again, if you asked pretty much any MAGA supporter today, they wouldn't have a lot of nice things to say about Dick Cheney. This was one of Dick Cheney's close advisors, and from based on what you just heard in that clip and what you saw, he is a neocon. He is a warmonger. Ladies and gentlemen, Donald Trump, next Secretary of Defense, Mike Waltz. And I can play clips from you about Kristi Noem and the puppy dog murderer and the idiotic things that she said, even in her book, lying and claiming that she had meetings with Kim Jong-un, which she didn't. And then she deleted that from her book and then did a bunch of interviews and never admitted that she lied, but took it out of her book. Again, Kristi Noem is going to be the Homeland Security Secretary, which is scary. And then Mike Huckabee Sanders. Mike Huckabee, I should say. I'm thinking of his daughter, Sarah Huckabee Sanders. Mike Huckabee, who's just an awful human being. I want to read you a quote because this is going to be the new U.S. ambassador to Israel. And as we hear from so many people on the left and the right, quite frankly, there needs to be peace in the Middle East, maybe a two-state solution. We got to find a way so more innocent people are not dying, whether it be in Israel or in Gaza, which I agree with. We don't want innocent people to die. Okay, that's all fine. I want to read you a quote from Mike Huckabee from not that long ago. He was asked, how are you going to feel if Donald Trump loses this election? Which he didn't, but he was asked. And this is a direct quote from Mike Huckabee. He says, quote, "It is going to be the last American election that will be decided by ballots rather than bullets." Boy, doesn't that sound like inciting violence? And doesn't that sound like probably the last person that you would want to advocate for peace anywhere, let alone in Israel? Ladies and gentlemen, Donald Trump's new U.S. ambassador to Israel, who said if Donald Trump lost, we would replace ballots with bullets. You couldn't pick a better person there. I got to be honest with all of you. I knew that members of his administration would be crazy. I knew that members of his administration would be Looney Tune nuts, but he's off to even a crazier start than I thought. I don't think Marco Rubio is going to be sticking around very long. Take that for what you wish. But these are unserious, dangerous, crazy people. These are people that are not good for the country. These are people that are dangerous, bad for the country. They want to deport 20 million people. How the hell is that going to happen? You know how badly this is going to hurt our economy? I guarantee you. Some of the policy positions on some of these people, again, warmonger Mike Waltz, who worked closely as an advisor to Dick Cheney. We all know how that war in Iraq went. You want to talk about Stephen Miller, who uses the same verges of Adolf Hitler? Americans are Americans. This is America. Same type of language speaking about Germany when Adolf Hitler spoke in the late 1930s. You want to talk about Stefanik? A lot of these people that he's hiring are people that have said some pretty bad things about him. True, but bad things about him. His own vice president, who said he's going to be the next American Adolf Hitler. Stefanik, who's called him a sexist in the past. And, Marco Rubio, we played some of that audio for you because the bottom line is they didn't think that Donald Trump was capable of winning. So they made these statements in the past because they didn't foresee him being the leader of the Republican Party. And now that he is, he tries to be very safe about it. Or they try to be, I should say, very safe about it. But the bottom line, ladies and gentlemen, is this. This shouldn't become a huge surprise to some of you. Even I'm a little surprised at the crazies that he's put in powerful positions in the first couple days after the election. Today's a week. In a week, this is what he's done. You reap what you sow. And I'm just going to sit back and watch. And I don't want to see my country go down the tubes. I love the United States of America. I want to see us succeed. I'm not rooting for America to go down the crapper. I don't want to see that happen. I love this country. I'm not going anywhere. But I'm extremely concerned. And when the you-know-what hits the fan, the first person that I will blame is not Donald Trump. I won't blame his advisors. I won't blame anybody in Donald Trump's staff. Heck, at this point, I won't even blame Donald Trump. I will blame you. You. The people out there that voted for Donald Trump. I will blame you. When your 401k goes down the toilet, when the numbers look terrible, and many of you out there are struggling and maybe you lose your health care, I blame you. For those of you out there that think that these were great hires, for those of you out there that think white people deserve reparations, for those of you out there that are okay with deporting every single person in this country, even if you're born in this country, to someone who's undocumented, a parent. If you're one of those people, I hate you. I really hate you. And let me be very clear, I wish you would be deported. Because you're a danger to this country. The bigoted nature of so many people that voted for Donald Trump. So many. Not all. So many. Who are okay with 20 million people being deported, are okay with separating families. They have no problem with that. Reparations for white people. You're totally okay with somebody like Robert F. Kennedy Jr. in a powerful position dealing with my health? Somebody with no medical experience at all? You're totally okay with that? You're okay with some of these people in his administration, including his own vice president who called him the next Adolf Hitler? You're okay with all that stuff? Then I hate you. We're going to take a quick break. We'll take some phone calls on the other side. 702-221-7283. And again, that number to call if you want to be a part of the conversation. 702-221-7283. What do you think about some of these hires in Donald Trump's cabinet to start? That's what we're going to be talking about next segment. And again, taking your calls at 702-221-7283. We'll take a quick break, and we'll be back right after this. You're listening to Pushing the Limits right here on KSHP.
Hey, everybody. Are you struggling to find a pizza place that reminds you of Brooklyn? That true blue New York style pie? Well, worry no more. Stallone's Italian Eatery Pizza is a knockout. We're located at 467 East Silverado Ranch Boulevard, just off of Premier Road, half a mile east of South Point Casino, just minutes from the Las Vegas Strip. Come by and grab a slice of pie. Plus, check out our Brooklyn-inspired Italian cuisine. Our sandwiches are super. Hero, that is. Because why be a sub when you can be a hero? Stallone's Italian Eatery is here to serve you phenomenal food, Vegas. Forget about it.
Who would have thought there'd be so many kids playing ice hockey in the desert? Jake Helps Hockey Foundation and the Las Vegas Ice Warriors, founded by Gina Yousafzai 8 years ago, made it possible for families who can't afford the equipment and fees. Donate today at www.hockeyforkids.org and help us continue making a difference. Join us in supporting Jake Helps Hockey Foundation and the Las Vegas Ice Warriors, where every kid gets a shot at the starting line. Just a reminder, our website is www.hockeyforkids.org.
Have you ever dreamed of having your own radio show or a podcast, but just didn't think it was possible? Well, dreams can come true. Radio U. Radio U is a 5-day course that'll teach you how to acquire your dream show. We'll teach you how to host, how to write commercial, how to interview, how to market, how to write a contract, and most importantly, how to monetize your dream radio show. You'll learn from some of the best in the business with over 75 years in broadcast experience. You'll learn from people like me. And the best part? Every single student will be live on the radio as part of the class. Plus, one student from each class will get their very own radio show. You'll be live on the air right here in Las Vegas. Radio U. The 5-day course is being offered at $699. For more information, give Radio U a call. 702-763-5024. That's 702-763-5024. Or check.
All right, welcome back. It is Pushing the Limits on a Tuesday. Thank you so much for joining us. Busy news day, of course. I've named you multiple people that have now been assigned to the Trump administration, including Marco Rubio. It's kind of weird, though, because they're not denying that Marco Rubio's on the team, but they haven't officially announced it yet. But I think it's going to be official very soon. Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State. They have announced Mike Huckabee, or as I like to call him, Mike Suckabee, the U.S. Embassy to Israel. This is the guy who said if Donald Trump didn't win, that we would replace ballots, decided with bullets instead of ballots if Donald Trump lost. Kristi Noem, the puppy murderer, very normal person, claims that she met with Kim Jong-un in her book, and then when she was caught in a lie, she took it out, but she never owned up to it. And then you have Mike Waltz, who I think most Republicans and Democrats would call a neocon warmonger. Stefanik, who is another two-faced phony, just like Marco Rubio, had disparaging things, some honest things to say about Donald Trump back in 2015 and 2016, and then completely flipped on it when she realized that she's going to have to coddle to him because he's the leader of the Republican Party. These people have absolutely no backbone. Stephen Miller is a nut. Mini Adolf Hitler is what I would call him. And Tom Homan, who wants to deport and separate families. You reap what you sow. If any of you out there think this is going to go well for America, then you're either extremely unintelligent or you're a bigot or both. And now we have Donald Trump, who's talking about reparations for white people. Folks, I am not making this up. Have a listen to this.
Furthermore, I will direct the Department of Justice to pursue federal civil rights cases against schools that continue to engage in racial discrimination and schools that persist in explicit, unlawful discrimination under the guise of equity will not only have their endowments taxed, but through budget reconciliation, I will advance a measure to have them fined up to the entire amount of their endowment. A portion of the seized funds will then be used as restitution for victims of these illegal and unjust policies that hurt our country so badly. Colleges have gotten hundreds of billions of dollars from hardworking taxpayers, and now we are going to get this anti-American insanity out of our institutions once and for all. We are going to have real education in America. Thank you.
Yeah, there you go. That's very intelligent. Restitution for white people. It's terrible policy. Un-American to help minorities in this country get to where they want to go. That's terrible, right? It's horrible for the country. That's what he's saying in his own words. That's exactly what this is, and make no mistake about it. This is reparations for white people. Taking funds out of colleges, and as he used the term restitution for white people, it's reparations for white people. He calls it terrible policy. But let's deport 20 million people in this country, and let's separate families. Let's deport the grandmas. Let's deport people that have been living in this country for decades that pay their taxes. And, well, what about families? Is there a way that we don't have to separate families? Yes, he says. Yes. Let them go too. Is that the country that you want to live in? It's not the country that I want to live in. I want criminals and violent criminals, if they happen to be legal or not, I want them put in jail and in some cases deported. I have no problem with that. I'm not talking about those people. I think most of America would agree. We're not talking about those people. We're talking about the good, hardworking people in this country that maybe don't have the correct paperwork to be here, but they pay their taxes, they're hardworking, they've had kids that have grown up here. Do you want to separate those families? Is this the America that you want to live in? It's not make America great again. It's make America white again. And if you don't believe me, just listen to the verbiage of Donald Trump. Listen to the verbiage of Stephen Miller. Listen to the verbiage of Tom Homan. Listen to what these people say. When they say certain things, we should believe them. Project 2025 is right around the corner. And I'm going to sit back, and I'm not going to like it, but I'll say I told you so. We're not talking about predicting an election, right? It's interesting because a lot of the people on social media, they'll be attacking those that were wrong about the prediction of the election, yet they're the same people who got the prediction wrong in 2020. And I wasn't going on the air every day saying, oh, geez, I told you so. I told you so. I told you Joe Biden was going to win. You were wrong. You're a bunch of idiots. No, I wasn't. I was talking about the future. I was talking about Joe Biden's policies. I was talking about the prior administration and how it hurt the country. I was talking about COVID. I wasn't focused on saying, you got it wrong. That's what people do. They make predictions. It's impossible to be right every time. Impossible. And I never went on the air and I never said she was going to win in a landslide. I never made those statements. I thought it would be a very close election and she would maybe eke it out. But what I discounted, and this is the main reason why I think she lost, not because she's a horrible president, or horrible candidate. None of those reasons. And I don't think it was because she was a mixed race either. I think it's because she's a female. Women are 0-2 against Donald Trump. Men 1-0. So I think there's something to say to that. Oh, Brian, are you calling everybody misogynist in this country? No, I'm not calling everybody anything. But I think a lot of people that went to that ballot box and voted for Donald Trump did not want to vote for a woman. They would rather vote for an adjudicated rapist and a 34-count felon. That's where we're at as a country right now. It's sad. 702-221-7283 is the number to call. And again, that number if you want to be a part of the conversation, 702-221-7283. So what are we talking about today? Remaining on topic. And I'd like all of you to remain on topic, as we do on this show, or at least try to do every day. What do you think about some of these hires? What do you think about Tom Homan? Do you think we should separate families and 20 million people should be deported? We're talking about that. We're talking about the latest hire, of course, the U.S. Embassy to Israel, Mike Huckabee. Marco Rubio. Mike Waltz. If you're not a Dick Cheney fan, you're probably not a Mike Waltz fan either. So we're getting your thoughts on that. What do you make of Donald Trump and some of these hires? And we're also talking about restitution for white people in this country. 702-221-7283 is the number to call. Let's start off with Patrick. Patrick is first up on PTL. Hello, Patrick.
MAGA Patrick to you, Brian. It used to be an insult. I don't know why you're not doing it anymore, but...
You want me to insult you? Is that what you want? You want me to insult you?
Well, now that the majority of the country is MAGA...
Okay, Patrick, you're wasting my time.
Doesn't help your cause.
Okay.
Doesn't help your cause.
I don't think you have any idea what helps your cause because you voted for Donald Trump. But can you please tell me why you called? What do you think about some of these hires that Donald Trump... Do you think? What do you think about Mike Waltz? Do you think he's a good hire? Because I'm sure you're a huge Dick Cheney fan. What do you think about Mike Huckabee? Being the U.S. ambassador to Israel. What do you think about Kristi Noem? What do you think about these people?
Well, I wanted to congratulate you, Brian, on getting your show syndicated. I saw a couple weeks
Patrick,
ago.
I'm not going to have
syndicated
Patrick.
nationwide.
Pot him down. Pot him down.
Where can I find you?
So, Patrick, this is going to be the end of the conversation, and you're not going to call back unless you can remain on topic. What I said a few weeks ago is true, and I said I would make another announcement about the show and other stations I will be on when it happens. This is going to take several months. But that's not why I'm having people call into the show. So I'm going to give you one more opportunity, or you're not going to call back. I ask people to remain on topic. You're an idiot because you're not capable of remaining on topic. So either answer my question and remain on topic, or go take a hike and find some other show to troll. Which is it going to be, idiot?
I do want to point out today Trump broke 75 million votes. And in
okay, Patrick, have a nice day. Patrick, see, this is what I do on my show. You can call into other right-wing shows and talk about anything you want to talk about, but that's not how we do things here. You either remain on topic or take a hike. 702-221-7283 is the number to call if you want to be a part of the conversation. Let's go to Lou. Lou is next up on PTL. Hey, Lou, what's going on?
Hey, Brian, we're in deep doo-doo, man. Will these people even pass a FBI background check? And will they have to go through Congress to get approval? Or
yeah, you're talking about the hires, right? You're talking about some of these hires. That's a really good question, but here's what I'm really worried about, Lou, and I think you'll probably agree with me on this. There are no people around him that are going to say, no, Mr. President, you can't do that. He pretty much has full reign on doing whatever the hell he wants to do. The way the Supreme Court ruled, he can do whatever he wants. So my answer to you would be no. I think he can hire whoever he wants, whenever he wants, and do whatever he wants, because that's the way the Supreme Court ruled. And I think this country's in a lot of trouble for it, Lou. I really do.
Unbelievable. I'm looking for a T-shirt that reads Putin's bitch. That's what I want to get next.
Well, that's who he is. I mean, we know that, right? We all know who Russia was
Exactly.
rooting for. We know who the Kremlin was rooting for. We know if there's another pandemic, Vladimir Putin will be the first to get COVID test kits. So I made a bet with somebody because I don't think the war is going to be over in 24 hours in Ukraine. I don't believe that's going to happen, and I don't believe Vladimir Putin's just going to say, okay, no problem, Mr. President. I don't believe that is going to happen. That's just my personal opinion, Lou. I don't know how you feel about that.
No, I agree, but Putin did send him a message by having Melania on Russian TV telling Trump, I have more of this stuff for you. Just do what I tell you to do.
There's a classy lady, right, Lou? There's the lady who won't go to the White House as Jill Biden invited her, something that is done every 4 years or every time there's a new president and first lady. But I'm not surprised because she's a horrific human being, just like her husband or contractual husband, whatever you want to call it. 702-221-7283 is the number to call. Again, 702-221-7283. Let's go to Adolph. Adolph is next on PTL. Hello, Adolph.
Hi, all, Brian.
All right, come on, man. Come on, man. We're not going to start a conversation by you saying that. I mean, obviously your name's not Adolph. You want to start off by making a statement like that. There's nothing funny about the Holocaust, so if you want to have a conversation with me, I'm happy to do so, but we're not going to start a conversation like that. Come on, man.
Okay. Well, let's see. I think his cabinet position members are going to be fantastic for what they're going to do. And when we make America great again, I will be one of the first ones commenting and applauding it.
Okay, what are you going to applaud? What do you want him to do? You think deporting 20 million people in this country is good for America? Separating families is good for America?
Make America great again.
So you think
America great again.
And what does Make America Great Again mean for you, Adolph, if that's your name? What does Make America Great Again mean to you?
Well, it's pretty self-explanatory, isn't it?
Well, it isn't. Why don't you tell me? I want you to explain it to me. I want to pick your brain.
We're going to bring back how America used to be. We are going to bring back white supremacy. We're going to bring back white order.
You want to bring back you want to bring back white supremacy? Is that what you just said? Did I hear you right?
Absolutely.
So Make America, thank you for being honest. So Make America Great Again to you means bringing back white supremacy.
We're going to bring it back, and we're going to make this country great again like it used to be.
If you don't mind me asking you, Adolph, is that why you voted for Donald Trump? Because you want to bring back white supremacy? Is that one of the reasons why you voted for Donald Trump?
Hell yeah.
Well, I appreciate your honesty. So you want to make America white. So that was my question. Make America great again. Does it mean make America white again?
Absolutely.
It does.
Why would we not want to have our country be how it used to be when it was great, when we were back in control?
So do you think it was great when black people were owned as slaves and women couldn't vote? Is that what you're talking about?
Well, I'm not going back that far. I wasn't around, but, in my earlier years, it was great.
Why was it great? What was different in your earlier... I don't know how old you are, sir, but what was great in your earlier years, besides the claiming that you support white supremacy, which is bigoted and racist in nature, which I find very troubling but not shocking? What back in your earlier days was so great that's changed now for the worse? Can you explain that to me?
We had whites with the jobs. We had whites being able to support their family.
Well, how can whites aren't able to support their family now?
Yes. Well, no. A lot of them, black people took our jobs.
Were you just about ready to use the N-word on this show?
The Mexicans are coming over here and they're taking jobs. And quite frankly, there's a lot of my fellow whites that can't get jobs or work, support their family.
I want to ask you another question, and I mean this in a serious question. Are you a member of like the Proud Boys or the Klan? Please be honest with me. Are you a member of a right-wing white fringe group?
I know people and I hang out with the people.
Okay,
and
so
with them.
Okay, that was fair enough. So I want to ask you. There's a reason why I asked that. I hear you.
I've been to different things, and
okay, fine. I don't know what. Okay, you know a lot of white supremacists. I get it. So now here's my next question. Here's my next question.
That's what they preach. We're preaching good things.
Okay, I'm sure you are. Here's the next question.
I'm not. They are, and I'm following along. I think it's great.
Any of your white supremacist friends, any of them, not vote for Donald Trump?
Not that I'm aware of.
Not that you're aware of. Got you. So all of your, no, hold on.
You can only talk?
Go ahead. Go ahead, white supremacist. Go ahead.
Yes. As far as I know, we all did. We got our wives and our girlfriends to do it as well. And quite frankly, if you look what happened, we got the majority of the popular vote. And why is that? Because we're bringing back, America, we're making it great again.
If somebody characterized you as a proud bigot, would you agree with that?
Well, I guess it would depend on who. No, you know what? Actually, I'm okay with that.
You're okay with being. You're okay with being. Okay.
And I'm fine. I don't understand why there'd be an issue with me wanting to have my race as the best race.
Because you judge other people based on the color of their skin. You don't see anything wrong with that in society?
Everybody's doing that, so we're doing it.
No, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. No, I disagree.
And we're doing it better. We're doing it better.
Is your name really Adolf?
Adolf.
Did your parents give you that name? Were they Klan members? Did they support Nazi Germany in the 1930s? I'm just curious on that one.
That's just what everyone calls me. That's not my real name, but
it's not your. Why do you think?
I'm gonna change it, but I haven't got around to it yet. But I like to be called Adolf.
Why do you like to be called Adolf? Do you admire Adolf Hitler? If you don't mind me asking, sir.
If you look what he did for Germany, right? If you look what he did for Germany, it was fantastic. Right?
You think it was fantastic? You think Nazi Germany? You think it was Nazi Germany? Hold on a second. You think killing 7 million?
You got everything like that.
You think? Why don't you shut up for a second? Let me talk. You think killing 7 million Jews was great?
Yeah, Jew.
Okay. Have a nice day. Have a nice day. Wow. Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm so glad that Adolf called in. That is Donald Trump's base. Am I saying that every single person that voted for Donald Trump is like this guy who just called in? No, I'm not. Obviously, that's not true. Donald Trump's base is made up of uneducated, ill-informed white people. And Adolf, who just called in, is a proud bigot, and that's why he voted for Donald Trump. It seems to me that that's the direction of this country and where we are headed. And that was a very, very frightening phone call, and at the same time, shocking. Let's go to Paul. Paul is next up on PTL. Hey, what's going on, Paul?
I can't believe I just heard what I heard, but he's enabled and emboldened a lot of these guys, a lot of them. He's saying it's okay to be a bigot now.
Yeah, he's a proud bigot, and he voted for Donald Trump. And don't you find it? All of his white supremacist friends, and I believe him when he says all of his friends are white supremacists, because who else would hang out with a guy like that? They all voted for Donald Trump.
My God.
This is where we're at as a country right now, and I'm telling you, I'm getting more worried by the day. I really am.
I am. Can I read you a very quick quote? I don't want to take up a lot of your time.
Sure.
I normally don't read quotes.
Sure, go ahead.
This goes back to what you're talking about the evangelicals. Barabbas represented what they wanted from salvation. They loved this Jesus guy, but Jesus' message didn't align with their insurrectionist ideas to topple Rome. Jesus had preached turning the other cheek and going the extra mile. They didn't like that Jesus' message did involve destroying the Romans. Now, you tell me that last week when they chose Trump, they were choosing Barabbas again, the guy that killed people and murdered people, over decency and morality. Tell me that's not exactly what they voted for last week.
Oh, you're absolutely right. And the thing that amazes me, Paul, is we all know that not everybody that voted for Donald Trump is like that last guy who just called in. But I truly believe that when people voted, they decided that they were willing to push aside the fact that he's a liable sexual abuser and he's a felon and all the terrible things he said about women and Gold Star families. The list goes on, and what he said about John McCain. They were willing to push that all aside because they just weren't willing to vote for a woman. And people can make excuses and they can say policy and Joe Biden ruined the country, which, by the way, is not true. They can come up with every single excuse in the book, but I think the main reason, not the only reason, but the main reason why she didn't win and he defeated her is because she is a woman and he is a man, and they were willing to let that overshadow all the atrocious things that Donald Trump has done in his life, the things he said, the felonies, and the liable sexual abuse. That's my opinion.
And they keep, the thing that gets me is that Democrats are all running around clutching their pearls, which is the one thing I hate about Democrats is they're just whiny little babies when they lose. They always trying to blame somebody.
Yeah.
You're talking about, I had a conversation last night with my in-laws, and I said, you know what? I would have been fine with McCain or Obama. I would have been fine with Mitt Romney or Obama. Either, and you and I probably agree, I could have been fine with either one of them.
Because they're human beings. They're decent people.
Decent human beings.
Right. Correct.
They chose this guy. They didn't. That's what bothers me. Not that he was chosen. It's that people in this country didn't give a crap about morality and decency.
Right.
And that they want to burn down Rome. Like Alfred said to Master Wayne, he said, why is he doing this? And he said, Master Wayne, and I know, Brian, this is going to be hard to hear, but it's true. Some people just want to watch the world burn.
Mm-hmm.
And I wish that wasn't the case. Mm-hmm. But they don't care if they get second or third degree burns, Brian. They don't care.
Well, I do. You do.
Own the libs.
All we can do. You're right. And
I care.
Yeah, so do I. Absolutely. And there are a lot of people in this country that do care. And all I can do is you can continue to call into this show and listen to this show. I can continue to call out the bigotry and the hatred and the nonsense, and we got to get through it together. That's what we got to do. We got to get through it together, and we're going to be very disappointed. We're going to be angered. It's going to bother us, but it can't let us dictate our life, and we got to continue to do what we're doing, and I will continue to call on it every day, just as you do, my friend, and I appreciate the call, Paul. We got to get through this together. 702-221-7283. Doesn't mean I'm not worried. Let's go to Rhonda. Rhonda is next up on PTL. Hey, Rhonda. Rhonda, are you there?
Hello.
Yeah, hi. Go right ahead.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yep, go right ahead.
First of all, I can't believe that bigot that you just had on the air.
It's pretty sad. It's pretty frightening.
It is horrible.
But you know what? I will give him credit for one thing. It pains me to say this, but at least he was being honest. There are a lot of people like that guy that are not willing to admit what he admitted on the air.
Right.
There are a large group of people that voted for Donald Trump in his base that think the same way that despicable man thinks, but at least he was willing to own it and be honest about it. We got a lot of cowards out there that feel the same way, but they're just not willing to admit it. That's all.
Oh, just like they hid behind their hoods.
Right. Exactly. Good people on both sides.
Your topic was about his picks for his cabinet and so forth. They're all horrible.
Yeah.
But the one I think is the worst is the guy in charge of deporting.
Yeah.
And
Tom Homan.
I have a little perspective on that.
Okay.
My son-in-law, who just became a U.S. citizen last year, was the first time he was able to vote.
Yep.
He had been trying for 10 years to get his citizenship. They don't make it easy. He's a family man, no criminal background. It took him 10 years and over $10,000 in legal fees.
Mm-hmm.
So how are these people supposed to become U.S. citizens?
You make a very good point. If Tom Homan, which he would never do, but if Tom Homan came forward and said, all right, for good people in this country that work hard, they might be undocumented, they've been here for years, they pay their taxes, we got to find a pathway to citizenship for them. However, people that commit violent crimes here, people that are not paying taxes, are not a good member of society, we need to deport them. I would be totally on board with that.
I would too.
And I think most of them, and I think
them pay.
Right.
The ones that are good working people, let them pay a fine and give them some kind of path to citizenship. Those people are not going to go away.
But here's what Tom Homan is. He is your typical middle-aged white guy Trump supporter who is bigoted in nature. And unfortunately, this man is going to be the border czar. I'm telling you, he is going to get rid of all the undocumented people in this country, or at least he wants to, that are brown. His idea of make America great again is make America white again. Now, he would never admit that, but just go by the way he talks to people and the things he says. There are children that are born in this country. He wants to separate those families. And then when asked,
that's what bothers me the most.
And then when asked, is there a way we can do this without separating families? He says, yes, they can go with them. Get out of our country. This is
then who are they going to have working here? because that's not going to happen.
It's going to destroy our economy. It is absolutely going.
Absolutely.
These people are so stupid. They don't even understand that. They don't understand it. Just like the same people who call themselves pro-life, right? Hundreds of thousands of kids are waiting to be adopted right now. If they banned abortion nationwide, which I hope they don't, millions of kids are going to be waiting to be adopted, but they don't think ahead. It's why the economy goes to shambles every time we have a Republican as the president of the United States, and then a Democrat has to always clean up. It's what they do all the time. It's despicable, and it's disgusting. 702-221-7283 is the number to call if you want to be a part of the conversation. Let's go to Dennis. Dennis is next up on PTL. Hey, Dennis, what's going on?
Hey, Brian, how are you today?
Good.
Good. Tom scares the heck out, worries the heck out of me, along with the rest of McFarland's members.
Yeah.
My question is this, he's going after all the brown and the black people. Who's going to do the jobs that the lazy white people don't want to do?
It's a good point. And as we agree, as I just said, if this does happen and even if you deport 10 million people, forget about 20 million, our economy is going to suffer for it. And any logical, semi-intelligent human being would understand, well, all right, who's going to be doing the types of jobs that some Americans in this country don't want to do? The price is going to go up. It's interesting, right, Tom, because they complain about inflation, and they don't understand if you deport 10 million illegals, the price of vegetables, the price of food in supermarkets are going to go way up. Just wait and see. You don't have to be a brain surgeon to know that, right?
Well, the problem, you're talking about fruits and vegetables.
Yes.
Trump is going to put a 200% tariff on John Deere if they move to Mexico. What do all our farmers buy? John Deere.
Right.
We could keep all the people doing the vegetables and everything else in this country that the white people think is above them. And when he puts that $200 or 200% tariff on those farmers who all voted for him, what's going to happen then when we're paying $50 for an apple?
Well, I agree with you, and I ask myself the same question. And that same question is not even just talking about immigration, about topics across the board, right, Dennis, which is, what's going to happen here? What's going to happen there? What's going to happen to our economy? What's going to happen to inflation? What's going to happen to healthcare? What's going to happen to Social Security? I'm asking myself these questions every day, and it's scary, very scary, when I try to come up with answers here, and it sucks. 702-221-7283. Susan is next. Hi, Susan. Thanks for calling in. What's on your mind?
I listen to your show all the time. You get me through my day.
Thank you. Thank you, Suzanne. I appreciate that.
But, they had an attorney on our TV the other day talking about, the courts are all backed up right now, that a lot of this stuff is going to take 3 to 4 years to even get through the court systems, because everybody's going to be filing charges. And so that was kind of encouraging. But it's like, I don't know. It's like me and my husband just retired. I'm retired. And we're seriously thinking about leaving the country.
Well, there's a lot of people that are making those claims that they're considering leaving the country, and you certainly have the right to do that. I certainly also understand and empathize with you why you would come up with that decision. I'm not there, but I respect your opinion on that. And hey, maybe I will get to that point. I hope not. I know. But I am very scared, and I'm very worried. And when you look at some of these names of some of these people that are already going to be in Donald Trump's administration, I think we're in for a lot of trouble. For a lot of different reasons. I really do.
Like I can't even sleep.
Well, here's the best advice that I would give to you. Okay? Is this. And I've been saying this on the show over the course of the last week. Because to be quite honest with you, I've struggled sleeping as well. A lot on my mind.
Yep.
You need to do the things in life that make you happy. That could be anything. It could be taking I think I heard a dog in the background, taking your dogs.
I do have a dog. Yeah,
okay,
we've been going out every day because, I was sitting at home. I have to get myself out of the house to get distracted because it just takes over.
So listen, there's nothing wrong with being emotional, and a lot of people on the far right will attack people like you for being emotional. And I know, and I applaud.
I know.
I have the opposite approach. I applaud people like you for being emotional, because you know what that means to me? It means you care about your country. You care about your fellow people. You care about your friends. You care about your family, and you're worried.
Well, the family and the friends that we have left.
Right, I understand, and
which is very few of those anymore.
Listen, I feel your concern. I feel your concern. So the best, and I'm not a therapist, but the best advice I can give you is do the things that make you happy. For me, I like going to a nice dinner, going on a date, going on a nice dinner, going to catch a show in Vegas. I love live music, going to basketball games. I try to do things. Now, this is my job, and at times it's very, very mentally difficult. It's not easy.
I believe it.
It's not. It's not an easy thing to do.
I listen to you, and I know you get into it with these people.
I do.
Believe me, Brian.
I do.
Before the election, I was getting into it with people on Facebook all the time, and man, it was wearing me down. It's like,
well, imagine how I feel. But you have to do the thing. Life is very short, right? And
it is.
You have to do the things in life that make you happy. Yesterday was Veterans Day, right? And
I took my husband out this veteran.
And that's nice. See, things that make you happy. But for me, I was reminiscing a little bit because, and I don't mind sharing some things about my personal life on the air. I have nothing to hide. And 32 years ago, yesterday was the anniversary where I lost my grandmother, and my whole family was in a very serious car accident when I was 12 years old. Yesterday marked the 32-year day where somebody took their eye off the road, and it changed my family's life forever. And of course, it made me sad. I was thinking about my grandmother last night. Obviously, thinking about my sister who passed away a few years ago at the young age of 37. A big reason was because of that car accident. So I had a lot on my mind yesterday.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, last night, when I was alone doing some work for the show today, on top of that, I was thinking about where this country is headed. And I can tell you something. Yeah. My grandmother was a wonderful lady. And I can tell you right now, she was compassionate. She was caring. And she would hate where the country is headed today. She would hate it. My sister was a very kind-hearted, compassionate person. She cared about others. The only person she would ever harm in her life was her own. At times, she made some bad decisions. But she never intentionally tried to hurt anybody. And I know she would have been very proud of Kamala Harris if, in fact, she had became the first female president of all time. So I think about my family. I think about my friends. And we move forward as a country. We move forward as a human race. And the best advice, like I said, is life is short. Do the things that make you happy. And I don't know what that might be, but it could be, you said you went out with your husband, right? You went out with your husband.
Did.
Okay, well, that's great. Try to, listen, there's nothing that'll get your mind off this completely. I'm not trying to fake it.
It helps to get out. And
get out. Don't talk politics with people right now. It's too early. Just enjoy life. Spend some time with your family and friends, knowing that you have things in place. Appreciate those things. And let's get through this as a country together. Let's hope that we can get through it as a country together. And I'll go on the radio show every day and try to separate fact from fiction. And that's my promise to you. Okay, my dear?
You do a great job, too.
Well, thank you, Susan. Hang in there, okay?
You know what? I'm going to hang in here, but I look forward to your day. You look forward to this time of the day every day. And I tell my husband, I got something to do for 2 hours. So.
That brings a smile to my face, and that's why I do it, Susan. You sound like a wonderful lady. Regards to your family, and everything's going to be all right. Just hang in there, okay, Susan? And I appreciate your call.
I will. Take care, Brian.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. That's an American who cares about her country. That's an American who's hurting. She's worried. What's wrong with showing emotion? Does that make you less of a human being? And all the people on the far right that have been demonizing those on the left, or not even those on the left, just people that are anti-Donald Trump, mocking them, making fun of them like they mocked Tim Walz's son. Remember that, for crying? What is wrong with these people? Is this the country that you want to live in? That somehow showing emotion and caring about your country is a bad thing? That somehow it's a negative, it's a bad thing if you care about this country? Suzanne is worried. I'm worried. We should be worried. That's all we're saying. Do the things that make you happy. Life is short. Do the things that you enjoy in life. And hopefully you'll be okay. Thank you for the call, Susan. I appreciate you for calling in, and not an easy thing to do, to wear your emotion on your sleeve like that. And I appreciate that, and hopefully things will be okay. 702-221-7283 is the number to call. Let's go to David. David is next up on PTL. Hey, David, what's going on?
Hey, how you doing today?
Good. What's on your mind?
The first thing I want to say is I just found your show a few weeks ago. I really did love it a lot.
Thank
make
you.
sure I listen to it every.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
I just want to let you know I'm not playing devil's advocate. I was very for Kamala. I have a lot of friends that are part of LGBTQ. I have family members that have international relationships or racial relationships. My closest friend growing up is Puerto Rican, so you could tell who I voted for.
Yeah, of course.
But I was just, we were all talking and stuff like that, and here's where I want to take it right and see what your thoughts are. We're talking about Donald Trump.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, here's my thing. For one, his health is not good. Would you agree?
Well, mentally and physically. I mean, mentally, he's just a lunatic, and he's losing it. And physically, he's been dragging his right leg along forever. We still don't know why he made that visit to Walter Reed when he was president. He won't release his medical records, so we all know why. The reason why he won't release his medical records is because his health is probably not in good shape, and he's afraid. He's afraid to release his medical records. That's exactly why.
Okay, well, here's where I'm going to go with it. Okay, yes, the Republicans run everything right now. I've accepted it. It took a good week of crying, being upset, and everything. But then I was thinking about, okay, let's be honest. How much damage realistically could this guy do?
A lot.
Well, yeah, I agree there. I'm sorry. I should reiterate what I was going to say.
Mm-hmm.
The first 6 months, yes, I agree. But here's the thing. 2 years, we're going to have a ton of votes again. I'm hoping for a blue wave.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then he's going to be, you could say, the B word blocked if we get the blue wave and we lock up the Congress and Senate.
Yes.
Now, here's my thing. Year 3, year 4. Any standing president doesn't do anything. He can't run again if he's still alive.
Okay, so I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying, but here's my concern. Okay. Yes, I am concerned the first couple of years with policy and what they are going to be implementing. But I'm even more concerned about his rhetoric, the things he says on a regular basis, the incitement of violence, the attacks on Americans, the enemy within. So, yes, I agree with you. Hopefully in 2 years you get a blue wave, and it'll make it more difficult for him to sign off on bills put on his desk. But at the same time, I'm worried about the first 2 years. I'm worried about what he's going to do on day one. And I'm worried about the language that he uses on a daily basis and the relationships he has with evil, murderous dictators. So while I totally understand where you're coming from, it doesn't discount what he could do the first 2 years before we allegedly have a blue wave, which, by the way, I'd like to see, but I'm not sure we're going to have after what just happened last week. But I get what you're saying, my friend, and I do appreciate your call, David. And there's not a lot of things right now that I could say positive moving forward at this point. Not a lot. And I'm not trying to be negative, but I am worried, and I'm not going to fake it on the air. I'm worried. I'm not going to say I'm not. 702-221-7283. Let's go to Seth. Seth is next up on PTL. Hey, Seth, what's going on, man?
Hi, yeah. I was just wondering, when you were talking about, we opened up the show with reparations for white people. Mm-hmm. Was that your opinion, or is that factual?
So he has asked for restitution for white people. In my personal opinion,
did you say that?
I played the audio. I can't play it for you again. I played his audio. No, I'm not going to play it again. I played the audio verbatim, the words that he used. I put it on my social media account. He has asked for restitution. So I played it. I played it for you.
Restitution. He specifically stated white people.
So
he quoted white people.
In the comments that he made, he was talking about reparations for black people and the money. I'm not going to play it again for a caller, but he talked about restitution for people, and including people who are not minorities, because we all know when we talk about affirmative action and we talk about what the college campuses are doing, he's talking about people that did not qualify for affirmative action because of the color of their skin, which, by the way, are white people. And he was talking about restitution and giving some of that money back to those people who are not minorities. So what other race could it be talking about? I'll throw it back on you. What other race could it be?
Asian people who scored higher on test scores than other races.
So what you're saying right now is you believe he's not talking about white people, he's talking about Asian people. Is that your take?
I'm saying he's not talking about the color of skin. He's talking about the test scores. Period.
Okay, he is talking about color of skin because he yes, he is, because he specifically referenced.
He never said that.
What is affirmative?
What you're talking
what
about.
is affirmative action? What is it? What is it?
Affirmative action is giving people of color an opportunity if they score lower on test scores than other races.
Okay, and
that's the definition of racism.
And he's not talking. That's the definition of racism. Okay, so you don't.
You're giving people jobs based solely on skin color rather than merit. That's the definition.
Actually, where can you say you're giving somebody a job? So do you think Kamala Harris got jobs because of her skin color?
No, I'm talking specifically about the school. So if you get granted,
so let me ask you a question. So let me ask you a question. You think schools are just giving black kids scholarships solely because the color of their skin? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then you have absolutely no idea. Then you have absolutely no idea what you're talking about, and I'll explain why. Okay. First of all, that's one element of it. It also has to do with grades and extracurricular activities and family and where they're from. You have absolutely no idea what you're talking about. That's a part of it. And for you to say that they're only getting into college, I'm not finished yet, okay? Hey, I'm not finished yet. It's my turn to talk now, okay? You sound like an ignorant bigot, okay? It's not just about skin color. That's a part of it. And if you go to any of the colleges throughout the country, that's an element of it. You're making it sound like these people who run colleges across the country are saying, I don't care what this kid got on his test score, don't care anything about his family, don't care about extracurriculars. All that matters is he's black. Do you realize what a racist you sound like when you make that claim? That's not what it's all about, sir.
Racist because that's actually
true.
Really?
I'm a racist. How am I a racist? Okay, so do you think black people and white people in this country are treated exactly the same? Why don't you answer my question? Does systemic? Why don't you answer? Why don't you answer my question? Does systemic racism exist? Why don't you listen to my question and stop talking? Do you think systemic racism exists in this country?
You or me?
I'm asking you a question. That means you answer.
If you scored higher on a test score,
put him down again. I'm not asking about test scores now. You dope. Answer my question. Prove to me you're not a racist. Does systemic racism exist in society? Yes or no? Answer the question.
Higher than a test score than me.
I'm not asking you about a test score. Are you incapable, you ignorant buffoon, of answering a question? I'm going to ask it now for a third time. I find it very interesting that you won't answer my question. I'm going to try again. Do you think systemic racism exists? Yes or no?
No, absolutely not.
Okay, what a shocker. What a shocker. The guy's exposing himself now. He's probably going to his Klan rally tonight. So you think that black people and white people as a whole in society are treated exactly the same, whether it comes to our justice system? You think that black people have not been oppressed, even though they were owned, something called slavery, and you don't think that police officers at times have treated people differently. Let me ask you another question, since you seem like such an intelligent guy and so self-aware. If George Floyd was white, do you think the same thing would have happened? If Ahmaud Arbery was white, do you think the same thing would have happened? Answer the question.
No, I don't think there would be hundreds of billions of dollars in property damage.
I'm not asking you about property damage, you stupid racist fool. Answer my question. If Ahmaud Arbery was white, would the same thing would have happened to him? Would 3 white people have lynched him, and then would the whole community and the police department throw that case under the rug? Please answer my question, which has nothing to do with Black Lives Matter protest. If Ahmaud Arbery was white, would the same thing have happened? Yes or no?
You can't even stay on the topic of colleges.
You can't answer any of my questions, which proves to me that you are a bigoted racist. So I have one more question for you. Since you won't answer any of my questions about systemic racism, the whole reason why we have affirmative action, the whole reason why, if you're a minority in this country and you do well in school and you have grades, sometimes a university will say, we want a minority and want to give them an opportunity, okay? But you think it's only about the color of their skin, not about their grades, because you're a moron. So my last question to the moron racist who won't answer any of my questions, who doesn't think systemic racism exists because he's a racist, my real question for you, sir, is what time is your Klan rally tonight? What time do you put the white hood on?
I'm not in a claim.
Yeah, exactly. You're a racist. You're a racist buffoon. You're a racist. Okay, yeah. Okay. You won't answer any of my questions. You say that systemic racism doesn't exist. You think that black people and white people are treated as all. Let me ask you another question, you racist bigot. Have you ever been pulled over because of the color of your skin, white boy? Have you ever been pulled over and a cop pulls you over?
Why do you hate Asian people so much,
Why don't
Brian?
you answer my question, dumbass? You won't answer any of my questions. Answer it. Have you ever been pulled over because of being white? Yes or no? Yes or no? I don't want to hear anything.
All the time.
Oh, yeah, sure. Give me an example of you being pulled over because of the color of your skin, you dope. You're a liar.
Because
you're a liar.
I hate Asian people.
Yeah, exactly. You're a liar and you're a dope and you're a bigot. Have you ever been followed? Have you ever been followed in an electronics store? Somebody thought you might steal something because of the color of your skin. Answer the question, you racist dope.
Man,
no, answer the
racist.
question. Why won't you answer the question? Well, I'm going to ask the question again. By the way, it's not a hypothetical because I'm like you. When I speak to my black friends, they tell me that they have been followed in stores because of the color of their skin. In fact, if you go on YouTube, you can see some of these videos. It's not a hypothetical, you stupid racist. So why don't you answer my question? You don't want to answer it because it's never happened to you. You've never been pulled over because of the color of your skin being white. You've never been chased around in a store thinking that you might steal something because of the color of your skin. Give me an example. I would love to know an example of how you've been oppressed because of the color of your skin. Go ahead. I'll give you the opportunity, Grand Wizard. Give me an example.
Asian people are being oppressed.
I'm not talking about Asian people. I'm talking about you, you dope. Why don't you answer the question?
Asian people
I'm not talking about Asian people, you dope. I'm talking about you. I'm not talking about Asian people. I'm talking about you. Answer my question. I'm specifically talking about you, the racist bigot who called into this show that thinks the only reason why black people get into schools is because they're black. You don't want to talk about their grades. You don't want to talk about any of their extracurricular activities. You don't want to talk about anything. But then all of a sudden, when the conversation is pointed to you, a Mr. White Privilege racist bigot like yourself who calls into this show, who thinks that black people and white people are treated exactly the same in society, then all of a sudden, oh, that's a hypothetical. I don't want to answer that because you've never been followed in a store because you're white. You've never been pulled over by a cop because you're white. So I'm asking you a question. Have white people been oppressed? And have you ever been oppressed? And can you give me a specific example without lying, because I think you're a liar? Have you ever been treated differently because of the color of your skin or oppressed? Can you give me an example?
I'm not talking about myself.
Exactly. You don't want to talk about yourself because you're complicit and you don't seem to understand that there's something in this country called white privilege. That's why you don't want to talk about yourself, because you are complicit and you are completely out of the realm of what really takes place in society. You don't listen to black people. Just a random question. I'm just curious because you sound like such a well-rounded and well-versed individual. How many contacts would you say you have in your phone? It's a simple question. Do you have like 300 contacts, 400 contacts? How many people would you say you have? Simple question. How many contacts?
About 1,000.
About 1,000. Okay. Of those 1,000, how many people are black? I'm just curious.
Probably like 300.
Probably. Okay. So you're, by the way, I don't believe that. I think you're lying. But how many conversations do you have with black people when you say, hey, I don't think white people and black people, I think they're treated exactly the same? You have black people that agree with you. Yeah, you're a liar. You're a liar. Yeah, I'm sure that happens all the time. Well, here's my last message for you, because everything you say is a lie. You won't answer my questions. You claim you've been pulled over because you're white, which is also a lie. You have no understanding of how these universities work. But here's my I guess my final message to you. My advice to you is to speak to people that don't look like you. Listen to them. Even somebody like a Tim Scott. I don't know. Do you know who Tim Scott is? Do you know who Tim Scott is? You're aware with who he is, right?
Did Harvard not get sued by black?
I'm not
Asian
asking
people?
you. Are you able to have a conversation without changing the topic, you dumbass? Do you know
No,
who?
that's what I
Pot him down again, you stupid idiot. I can't even have a conversation with you. You're so stupid. So I'll answer the question for you. Tim Scott is black. He's a Republican, staunch Republican. Tim Scott said he's been pulled over 10 times because of the color of his skin in a span of a year. So my question to you is Tim Scott lying, or is he maybe telling the truth?
I definitely don't believe that.
You don't believe that. Okay, so Tim Scott is lying. All the black people in this country are lying. Gotcha. You still haven't answered any of my questions from earlier in the call, and you probably won't. If Ahmaud Arbery was white, would the same thing have happened? Yes or no? Why won't you answer that? Do you even know who Ahmaud Arbery is, you dope?
The guy in Georgia. I know who you're talking about.
Okay,
Yes, I do.
so if Ahmaud Arbery was white, would the same thing have happened? Why can't you just honestly have
if he was Asian, the same thing would have happened.
I'm not
Does that
asking.
mean
That wasn't my question. Why are you obsessed with Asians? Answer my question, dude.
discriminated against?
Why don't you answer my question? Why is it so hard to have a conversation with a bigot? I don't know. Maybe because they're stupid. I'll ask it one more time. If Ahmaud Arbery was white, would that have happened? Yes or no?
If you were black, would you have that show?
Why you don't answer a question with a question? You dumbass. I've had enough of you. You dumbass racist bigot. Should I give him one more opportunity to answer? I'll probably regret it because this guy is so stupid. He's such a racist. He's such a clown. Guaranteed he's wearing his Klan outfit tonight before his little Klan rally tonight. But I'll give him the opportunity to answer one more time.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Is he still talking?
Whatever.
He doesn't even know he's pod down. He's so stupid. He doesn't even know. He doesn't even know he's
no,
pod down.
No, you just mute
he's
people.
So
You don't
He's
let
so
people
stupid.
talk.
No, I'll let you talk. If you answer one of my
debater.
questions, I'll let you talk.
You're a
Pod him down.
debater.
I'm a horrible debater, yet you won't answer any of my questions. See, when you have a debate with somebody, they ask a question, and then you ask a question. Let's give this a shot. I will ask you a question. You will answer my question, and then I'll give you the opportunity for you to ask me a question. Is that fair? Can we try that?
Another hypothetical question.
Another hypothetical question. So you're not going to answer any of my questions, but you say I'm a terrible debater. You know what, dude? Just F off. Have a nice day. Good luck at your Klan rally tonight. A guy just called into this show saying he's okay with restitution. I consider it reparations for white people. He's totally okay with that. He calls into this show and he thinks black people and white people are treated the same under any circumstance. That's what he said. He thinks that the only reason why black people are put into college is because they're black. Nothing to do with their grades, nothing to do with extracurriculars, nothing to do with the human being they are, their family, where they came from. But he calls into this show and he says, the only reason why these people are getting into college is because they're black. Now, the only conclusion I can have, and I called him this multiple times, is he's a bigot. He's a racist. And what a shocker, ladies and gentlemen. He voted for Donald Trump. Donald Trump's base, ladies and gentlemen. We had a guy calling up earlier praising Adolf Hitler. He voted for Donald Trump, openly a white supremacist. We just had a guy call into the show who claims that restitution, or as I would consider it, reparations for white people, which appears to be Donald Trump's policy, he's totally okay with that. Claims that he's been pulled over because he's white. Claims that he's been pulled over because of the color of his skin, because he's white. You can't have conversations with these people. They're extremely ignorant. They're bigoted in nature. And their orange turd hero is Donald J. Trump. That's why this country's in for trouble. That's what I think. All right. So maybe we'll take a little bit more calls, a few more calls later on in the program. So I'm watching CNN last week. And as I've said on this show multiple times, I think Scott Jennings, the Republican CNN contributor, is an absolute clown and a douchebag. I've said that time and time again. He's very condescending. He has no moral compass. All he cares about is tax cuts for the rich. But he doesn't seem to care about the fact that Donald Trump calls the enemy within, a liable sexual abuser, a 34-count felon, so on and so forth. I've talked about Scott Jennings on this show before. By the way, he has responded back to me on Twitter, and he's refused to come on this show. Shocker. So I'm watching CNN last week, and they had a guy on who you might have heard of him before. His name is Pete Dominic. He's a very talented and funny comedian. He's been a contributor on MSNBC. He's on CNN. He's worked with Jon Stewart. He's worked with the Colbert Report. And I want to play for you this exchange that he had with Scott Jennings, because it proves everything that I've said about Scott Jennings. Just have a listen to this.
Signal that the wars in Afghanistan, the war in Iraq, the Republican policies that led to those wars, the idea that Joe Biden made the final difficult decision, and his administration and his military leaders. I mean, you guys live on the tippy top of bullshit mountain if you actually think that so many people think that the pullout of Afghanistan was the pivot point. Are you kidding me?
Well, I mean, I can read a chart and I can read a poll. I guess you can't. But the reality is when he made that decision.
Your petty insults are so weak, dude. You have no idea. Like, I don't even understand if you hear yourself talking. Look, you can laugh all you want, but like, I can't read a chart. Like, it's just so hacky. It's so uninteresting.
Look, the reason
and
that we
unconvincing.
brought this up is because
that was from a
Democratic.
Yeah, he's right. It is so condescending. That guy is joining on the show right now. Very happy to have Pete Dominic, and I was happy also to see that he's a fan of this show, which means a lot to me. Pete, I do appreciate you coming on, my friend. How are you?
Dude, I discovered you like, I don't know, 6 months ago. And then you know how things work, like algorithms. Like once I clicked on you twice, they just fed me you every day. And I just love it because I'm like, oh, there's that Brian Shapiro. He's going to eat somebody alive. But more importantly, just not only is it entertaining, but just like your righteousness, your knowledge of the issues, your style debunks this idea that, you know, liberals are snowflakes and all that. And you're just really smart in the way that you run your show. I loved it. And I got a little jealous. I missed talking to the live callers because I hosted at SiriusXM for 12 years. And I thought at live radio is the best. So I'm a huge fan of yours. I'm really happy you invited me on, and I'm psyched to be here, man. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Pete. That really means a lot to hear somebody like you say that. You've been doing this for a long time. I really appreciate that. Let's start with Scott Jennings, and then I want to talk to you a little bit about, you know, some of Donald Trump's hires over the past week. What is that like when you're sitting across from a guy like Scott Jennings live on CNN, millions of people watching, and he's so condescending to you? Like, what is going through your mind at that point?
Well, I am an emotionally disturbed person, so it affects me, it triggers me. And like in therapy, I've worked on that moment between stimulus and response. But believe it or not, Brian, I've gotten nowhere near being good at handling that moment. So my reactions to, you know, that kind of ridiculous, I'm a stand-up comedian, or I certainly spent most of the first part of my career in comedy clubs with hecklers and other comedians. And I grew up around a lot of black guys. So like, I know how to heckle. I know how to, snap on people and all of that. I get the game, but I just, to be sitting next to such a hollow barrel and having him try to condescend to me was too much. I actually don't think I sounded very good. I wish I would have handled it differently, but I also needed to let him know that that's how I felt in that moment. But more importantly than any of that, the thing that you said, I disagree with. You said about Scott Jennings might believe this or that about, I think you said some economic issue, trade or something.
Taxes, yeah.
Yeah, but I'm like, there's a lot of guys, and we can talk about media, and I know more about that. It's the only place I'm an expert than anything else. Like Scott Jennings has no beliefs. His whole deal is to play that seat, that role on CNN and get paid. I mean, he hates Donald Trump. All those guys.
I agree. No, let me be clear, because maybe I wasn't. Pete, I agree with you 100%. I think many of these people, most of them are phonies. They bend into pretzels for Donald Trump. They know he's an awful human being. And you're absolutely right. Jennings lies on the air every single day. That's what they pay him to do. So I agree with you.
I also think that a lot of the men that kind of apologize and side with Donald Trump, and I'm certainly not casting any aspersions on Scott Jennings. I know nothing of anyone ever accusing him of anything. And I'm not saying this, but I think that when you can relate to or apologize to a man who you know has sexually assaulted dozens of women, sometimes I wonder if you're comfortable with that because you are that. And so I think that's I think people miss that a lot. Like if you really believe that guy isn't a serial sexually assaulting person, then I think maybe you don't know what sexual assault is. And maybe you yourself have sexually assaulted a lot of women, and maybe you feel bad about it because you know it's wrong, but it makes you feel a little better because you've done it before.
I think that's a good point you make. If you don't mind me asking, like when you guys are off the air, when that segment ends, does he say anything to you? Do you say anything to him? Is there anything that's said between the two of you after that?
First of all, you can ask me anything you want and I'll answer everything.
Thank you.
And second of all, no, he does. He looks at his phone. I look at him because I want to make sure. When I go into cable news television studios where I've worked for over 10 years and gone on those types of panels, I 100% go in, including the women at the table, whoever they are. I try to come in there as confident and as much of an alpha as I can. I try to be the alpha in the room because I know I'm not as smart as some of those people on certain issues. So I try to intimidate them with my own personality. So when those cameras come on, they know, not to come for me. And so you have to identify who the others are in that way, and you have to play that game. And so in my case, a guy like that looks down at his phone and doesn't look at you. He'll say something on the camera, but he's not consistent off. And
Cowardly is the word that I would use. At a minimum, if he said, "Hey man, nothing personal. I know we disagree on stuff, but I appreciate the conversation," and he shook your hand, then maybe you'd have a little bit of respect for him, maybe a little bit.
I went in and I said hi to him. We know each other. I said, "Hey, Scott." That was it. And then we don't say goodbye. And there's a lack of respect that I have for him. And I'm sure he probably feels nothing for me, but yeah.
Right. I'm trying to figure out like where they find some of these people. Like I'm trying to remember the guy, he's getting into it with Mehdi Hassan. Yeah. And he makes a joke about a beeper. And I know they threw him out, which CNN, I'm not blaming CNN for that. I'm blaming that douchebag for making that statement. But I'm like, where are we at as a country? Imagine the types of comments that they make behind closed doors when they're not on the air. I say the same thing about Donald Trump, right? The stuff he says at a press conference, at a rally, the enemy within, attacking Gold Star families, attacking women on looks. Imagine the stuff that Donald Trump says behind closed doors.
Oh, I don't have to. I mean, we've heard him on tape, right? You can grab women.
Yeah.
And I also was on The Apprentice in 2004. And when I was on The Apprentice in 2004, I was doing, the whole thing was they had to hire comedians to host a benefit. That was the whole task. And they said to us in 2004, Mr. Trump, this is off air, Mr. Trump is going to be here soon. Would you like to meet him? And I said, does he want to meet us? And they said, not necessarily, but we can arrange a meeting. And I said, then I don't want to meet him because I knew that he was a awful person, just particularly to women. I knew that for a fact because I knew women who knew him, and I was a New Yorker. And if you're a New Yorker, you read the tabloids. So I was using, I wanted to be on that show. I didn't consider I was using Trump. He wasn't that show. That was an NBC property. They picked him.
Yeah.
And he took full advantage of it, obviously. But the point I'm making is like, I didn't want to meet him then. He was terrible then. And those people, so where do they find these people is your question. These people are a dime a dozen. And so the harder thing to find is like a female or a black person who will support Trump. And once you find one of them, those people are making money.
Like if I'm having a conversation with Scott Jennings, which I never have, and I'm sitting across the table where you were, I probably would have handled it the same way you did. But I would say, look, dude, we can talk about policy. We can talk about the accomplishments of the Biden administration. But does a moral compass matter? Does decency matter? Don't you want that in a leader? Right. Or do you want somebody that just attacks? And by the way, the comment that you made about suckers and losers, you're absolutely right on that. We're led to believe by a Scott Jennings or these MAGA Republicans that a 5-star general who's risked his life for this country in public service is just blatantly lying about something like that. These are the people that knew Donald Trump best. These are the people that work for him. It seems like the people that say the nice things about Donald Trump, either they're in it for themselves, like a Marco Rubio, or they've said disparaging things about Trump before, like his vice president, the next American Adolf Hitler. Are these people just complicit? Are they just liars? Or do they believe the stuff that they spew?
Oh, they mostly don't believe it. I mean, Joe Rogan, I don't think believes what he's saying. Joe and I used to be friends. I was on his show, and I know that he doesn't believe a lot of the stuff that he says. I mean, I think.
And why is he supporting Trump?
Why?
Yeah.
Because it helps him. Helps him. I think, he's got most of his audience is men and MMA and all that, anything that appears, quote, tough or traditionally masculine and so on. Also, it's just, he's can be a contrarian. I mean, I could go on and on about him specifically.
But think Elon Musk paid him off or no?
No. Joe, first of all, has $100 million deal with Spotify, right. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure he doesn't trust Elon Musk to fulfill his up end of the deal or whatever. Joe is using Elon, I'm sure. More importantly, Elon is using Joe. Joe doesn't need Elon. Elon needs Joe.
But let me ask you this then, because I wasn't aware that you did the Rogan show, but I want to ask you about Kamala Harris because I do have some criticism.
19 before COVID, I did it.
Gotcha. Okay. I thought that Kamala should have done the Joe Rogan show, not because I love Joe Rogan, because I don't, but I think that they were a little bit too, what's the word I'm looking for? Conservative, for lack of a better term, with letting her do interviews until later on. She did Bret Baier, which I thought was great. She did Howard Stern, which I thought was great. I thought she should have done more, and I know she was put behind the 8 ball. 3.5 months is not enough time, in my personal opinion, but I thought she should have done Joe Rogan. What's your thoughts on that?
The reason I disagree is only because of the fact that those shows end up being clipped up. So if there would be an inevitable moment in a 2 to 3 hour conversation, which is what he likes to do, where she was going to say something that would have maybe gone viral, and that would have been the thing that most people would have heard. the people that heard the whole show in the context would have seen how brilliant she is, and it would have been an advantage because she's so much smarter than a guy like Joe Rogan, and she would have come off as intelligent and thoughtful, and it would have probably debunked some of the things that are being said about her and so on. But in the end, it would have been the clips that would have probably hurt her, I'm guessing. So I always think of things as clips. You know, it's interesting that clip you played of me on CNN earlier got seen by millions more people than watched CNN when I was on. So it's always about the clips, whether it's a debate or a show. So I think of things in terms of what's going to be posted on social media and how it's going to reverberate. So I worried about that, but you may be right. It may not have been the case. Maybe she's brilliant throughout, and maybe but I don't think it makes enough of a difference. I don't think that Joe Rogan has such a huge audience that those turned into votes for Donald Trump that weren't already, you know.
I'm not discounting what you're saying. You might very well be right. I just think if you're running for president and I agree with what you said about Harris. I think she's a brilliant woman, very accomplished. We're on the same side there. I just think you got to take the hits and you got to listen. If they're going to cut something up and edit it a certain way, and then if they do that, then the campaign needs to put up the actual clip in the context of it. But I think it might have helped her, maybe not. So let me ask you this question then, and I'll start.
I mean, it would have helped her. Let me say I can see that it would have helped her. Would she have won in any state or anything?
Probably not. It might have helped her, but I hear where you're going with that. So I try to ask myself the same question, which is, well, why did she lose? I think there are multiple reasons, but I think the number one reason is misogyny, and people can disagree with me until the cows come home. Hillary lost, even though she won the popular vote. Kamala lost, Joe Biden won. I think there's a lot of people in this country that were willing to put aside the liable rapist, the 34 count felon, all the despicable things he said about women, the way he's treated women his whole life, the laundry list, the things he said about John McCain and so on. But they were willing to put that all aside. When I say they, I mean his base of supporters. Yeah. They were willing to put that aside and say, I don't want a woman running the country. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, my short answer is I agree, but I think there's a much more interesting, longer answer, which is if I were to argue from a conservative point of view, conservatives have elected women governors in several states like Mississippi, Kay Ivey, and other states, Nikki Haley in South Carolina, what's her name in North Dakota right now, who apparently is going to be in the cabinet.
The puppy killer.
Yeah, that lady.
Yeah, you're talking about Kristi Noem. Yep.
I think it's important that people understand that women can uphold patriarchy and that black people can uphold white supremacy, like the lieutenant governor of North Carolina or unfortunately lots of others. And so I absolutely think that was a factor, a huge factor that people did not want to vote for a woman because she's a woman. But as I've been thinking about this and talking about this with people who I vehemently disagree with, I'm changing my opinion just slightly about sexism and racism to define it in a way, because a lot of people are getting so offended that when you or me say you didn't vote for her because she's black or because she's a woman, they're saying that never came into my mind. And here's the thing, Brian, I believe them. I believe that they aren't thinking about black folks or undocumented immigrants necessarily. A lot of them are, obviously. Or women. A lot of them are, obviously. But I believe some of the people who say that. The problem for me as an anti-racist and anti-sexist, and don't get me wrong, I'm plenty racist and plenty sexist. I'm just saying I'm trying not to be. The problem is, and the way not to be is to surround yourself with smart people of color and women, and especially women of color, which I've done. But the different take I have is it's not that you won't vote for women or that you won't vote for a black person. It's that you don't care about them. You don't think about them. Right. That is another definition of sexism. Like, yes. I don't care about women, reproductive rights. I'm not a woman, or I don't have daughters, or I'm not worried about abortion. It doesn't affect me. That is another form of implicit, in this case, sexism.
Such a good point. Yeah.
Or racism. Like, I don't care about black people. So black people are so, I mean, Eddie Glaude was so, poignant the other day. He always is. I think what I said on CNN in this other clip about it is, I think that it has a lot to do with racism. It's that racism that is, I don't care about you. I don't care that you feel endangered, that you don't feel like you have access to healthcare, education, and opportunity in general. I don't care that you feel that way. I don't care. I'm not thinking about you. And to me, that's bad. We should care about other people, and every religious philosophy teaches that, and every single good person thinks that, care about the stranger. And we certainly should care about women, whether or not we have daughters. I have 2 daughters, and so some people say, sometimes my feminist friends, and I consider myself that, oh, you can't say you only care about women because you have daughters. And I would say, listen, Fair enough. But because I have daughters, I think even more about them. Just the way I don't care about cystic fibrosis because I don't know anybody who has cystic fibrosis, so I don't think about it. But if I did, I would care a whole hell of a lot about it.
Natural reaction, and you make such a good point. When people go into the voter booth, they're not thinking about minorities. They're not thinking about a woman's control over her own body. You're absolutely right, and I think that's really important. If you're just joining us, comedian Pete Dominic, watch him on CNN and watched him for years, and he did a great show for a number of years on satellite radio. So I wanted to ask you, Pete, now about the future.
For God's sakes, plug my daily podcast, Brian.
Let's go. Tell me about your daily podcast. Let's go.
I host a daily podcast, and the most interesting thing, and I'm sure you're experiencing this too, is something happened that I didn't plan for, and now it's more valuable than it would have been had Kamala Harris won to a certain extent. We created a community. And everybody's talking about the importance of community, and obviously humans have been talking about it for forever. It's important for every part that animates all parts of our life. So I built this community through the podcast, and I'd love to have listeners of yours come check it out. So and lately, I do it every day. It drops at midnight, almost every night at midnight. I do a news segment, and then I interview experts, people who are experts on issues, and a broad range of experts, many of which you now are big stars on TV, like Laura Coates started on my show, and so many others. So I'm really proud of that. I'm a guy who says I don't know a lot. I bring on people who do. That's my show. And accidentally, we created a community, and people, we hang out on Hangouts. We get together in real life. I'm friends with these people. If you need friends, if you're alone, if you're an extrovert, and if you're scared out of your mind right now, we got a place for you at standupwithpete.com.
I love it. If you ever need an expert that's a PhD in attacking MAGA deplorables, let me know. I'll gladly
interview you. I want to get you on the show next week.
I would love to do it. Let's do it, my man. So I hate to be a downer here, but let's talk a little bit about some of the hires that Donald Trump has put in place here just over the course of the last several days. We have a few more minutes left here. Tom Homan, a guy who wants to separate families and deport 20 million people. Yeah. And then when asked, is there a way to switch it up where you don't have to separate families? He says, well, yeah, they could just leave with them. You mentioned Kristi Noem, Marco Rubio. You look at Mike Huckabee. By the way, Pete, Mike Huckabee just said recently in regards to this upcoming election, if Donald Trump loses, quote, it's going to be the last American election that will be decided by ballots rather than bullets. Mike Huckabee is the U.S. ambassador to Israel. Boy, talk about a guy that wants to bring peace into the Middle East, who thinks if Donald Trump lost, in the future, we're going to be talking about elections with bullets. I mean, what do you make?
Wow. This is breaking news to me. He appointed Huckabee?
Yes, he did.
To be
Mike Huckabee, or as I call him, Mike Suckabee, is the U.S. Embassy, official U.S. Embassy cabinet member in Trump's to Israel. Mike Huckabee.
The jokes are going to be all about, this is how the rapture happens. Like, it's Huckabee brings on the rapture because, of course, Christian nationalists or evangelicals, they support Israel because of their end times prophecy coincides with, or has common interest in that part of the planet, Israel, of course. And so seeing that Mike Huckabee has been appointed to bring on the rapture, I would think. And I was on his show all the time. He was on my show a bunch of times. I know him really well in person. Nicest, funniest guy. He's changed, though. His demeanor has changed to be much more cruel in the past, in the Trump years. The bottom line about all those people, most of those people, all of them, is the cruelty is the point, is the policy. So the meaner you can be, the more likely you will be to be appointed. And so in Tom Homan's case, the cruelty that will play out with the removal of undocumented people, you got to have a guy like him doing that. You got to be, even John Kelly, when he was in his former chief of staff, was the head of Department of Homeland Security. Like, he didn't take pride in it. He didn't talk about separating families. Kirstjen Nielsen didn't love doing it either. This guy's going to enjoy it. So appointing people that are really terrible, mean, awful, people that enjoy, unfortunately, there's a certain segment of our population. I often talk about this being the difference between liberals and conservatives to a certain extent. Like, I don't enjoy people suffering, even if I hate them. If I hate you, I don't want you to suffer. But these people, after I was on CNN on Thursday night, I was in the police station on Friday night, Brian, because I got so many threats to my family, threatening to rape my daughters. They want me to suffer. They actively, and this has been my whole career, they actively try to threaten me. They want me to suffer. They enjoy my suffering. I do not, even that guy who called in a rape threat to my daughter, I don't want him to suffer. I don't want to become him. I will never become that. This is who.
Hold on. I just want to go back to what you just said. I'm so sorry that you and your family have had to go through that. That's horrible. So you're telling me after your appearance on CNN Thursday, you're telling me that you received threats, just on
after
social
all
media?
of my appearances on CNN, after every television appearance, after a lot of my social media activity, after my appearance on Joe Rogan in 2019, the worst threats I ever got were as a result of my role in my local school board fight, where I am, as you can imagine, a ferocious, vehemently passionate attack dog against those who would, subject marginalized communities to pain and exclusion and worse. And so as a result of my work trying to get, good board members elected versus these Moms of Liberty people, they targeted my family with an anonymous call to Child Protection Services saying that I was sexually abusing my own daughters, who were then 15 and 17. And police came to my house. And so had to interview my daughters, and they immediately knew I was a well-known person and they knew what it was, but they still had to do it. And it was horrible. And so this is who they are and this is what they do. We don't do that as a practice. And we certainly we aren't okay with it if we find out people who are like-minded do. But that's another reason I hope people will, trust me and find me credible and listen to my work and join our community, because I would rather, this is who I am. People they're going to threaten us. This is what fascism is. I have been subject of fascism many times, because what they do is they threaten you in hopes that you will stop talking, and I will not stop talking. I fear for my family, and I really do. I worry about.
I'm so sorry. You should be. I mean, that's just. I hate to say this, Pete, but I've gone through some similar things that you're going through. I mean, the things that people say about me that are completely untrue on a regular basis. I've just, But when you get threats to your family, like your daughter, like something like that, obviously you have to take it seriously. I've had death threats in the past, and I've had to take that seriously and take it to court. So sadly, Pete, we have to keep doing what we're doing, though, right? We have to keep the fight.
Especially white men, like white men have to do this. And the reason why white men don't do it is because why would you? For what reason? And it makes you uncomfortable and it puts you in harm's way. So just take the easier way, and don't put your family in danger, and don't put your job in danger. But we stand on the shoulders of civil rights leaders who did. Some were assassinated, and there were a lot of white people who were part of that. If we're the problem, then we have to be the solution as well. And so we have to be in spaces and places where we advocate, where we push back. The standard you walk past is the standard you accept. So if you let somebody do something, say something, be something, then you're part of the problem. And so I've just always wanted to be the change that I want to see in the world. And, they can threaten me all they want. I've been a small guy my whole life. I've been running my mouth my whole life. I've got my ass kicked a couple times as a result of it. Bring it.
I love that. I love that attitude. And are you originally from New York?
Central New York. I grew up in Syracuse.
That's why. I'm from Connecticut. I'm from the East Coast. I love New Yorkers. Because the way you guys are, and I'm talking about New Yorkers in general, not the way Donald Trump is. But
I lived in New York City. I came of age. I moved to New York City when I was 18 and came up as a stand-up comedian, and I love it. About the early aughts. I was in New York City on 9/11. I lost friends that day.
I'm so sorry.
I smelled those buildings burning and the people burning in those. And then I went out and protested against the Iraq War because I didn't,
which you were right about, which you were 100% right about. And now, by the way, one of Dick Cheney's closest advisors, Mike Waltz, is also Donald Trump's next Secretary of Defense. That's a whole nother can of worms. But I want to close by saying this, and let me just reiterate: I'm so sorry that you and your family have had to go through that. It's absurd. You're obviously an extremely talented guy. You're opinionated, in my opinion, on the right side of history. And I love hearing you, and I love hearing your voice, and it's courageous to continue to do what you're doing, regardless of all the crazy lunatics out there. You're obviously doing something right. If people weren't doing that stuff to you and me, and I don't condone it, I wish it wasn't happening, but if people weren't doing that, then we would be doing something wrong. People want us quiet. And it's interesting because these same people talk about freedom of speech and censorship. Then when they see somebody like you or somebody like me, they want to shut us up.
Yeah, you embody something, which is why I'm kind of attracted to what you're doing, because it's similar. We have a similar style in terms of the fearlessness of it, and this idea that somehow because of our politics we're somehow weak. And so, can I read something and then you can let me go?
Sure.
I can't believe I'm such a hack to fall for a meme because I don't know who wrote this, but I love it. It really speaks to me, and I think it describes you. And I wonder if you feel the same. But it's short. I'm not a liberal snowflake. My feelings aren't fragile. My heart isn't bleeding. I'm a badass believer in human rights. My toughness is in my tenderness. My strength is in the service of others. There's nothing more fierce than formidable, unconditional love. There is not a thing more courageous than compassion. But if my belief in equity, empathy, goodness, and love indeed makes me, or people like me, snowflakes, then you should know winter is coming.
I love that. And I do think that describes me a lot. If people want to call me a snowflake like you for being compassionate and caring about other people and not wanting families to be separated and not wanting to tell women what to do with their bodies and not wanting someone to be the leader of the free world who attacks every single person that disagrees with him, then if they want to call us a snowflake, bring it on, man. We got winter. Bring it on.
I want to work with guys like you now to redefine masculinity and strength in a different way, because the Navy SEAL that comes home after fighting the war and does not confront his demons is weaker than the Navy SEAL who does. It's very hard to confront the horror show that is the life of so many men that are taking their lives, turning to alcohol and addiction, and supporting men like Donald Trump. We need to do better for those men and boys, and I'd be really happy to partner with you on that if you think that's something.
I would love to work with you down the road, and let's talk about that. But you're a really talented guy. I love what you do. Look forward to doing your show. Love to have you back, and let's talk in the future. And I wish you the safety and security for you and your family, my friend, and keep up the great work. And you got to get out here to Vegas.
Don't worry, I will. As much as I hate it, I will.
We'll talk about that. You're not the first person to tell me that. I had Michael Rappaport on once, and he hates Vegas too.
I mean, my only point about Vegas is, how do I say this? It shouldn't exist.
We can talk about that. That's another conversation for another show. Pete Dominic, love what you do, my friend. Appreciate the time and look forward to talking to you soon.
I'm really grateful and flattered that you had me on. Thank you.
Absolutely. Appreciate your time, Pete. Thank you so much. That's Pete Dominic, everybody. Great guy. Love what he does. Yeah, maybe we can connect. I'd love to connect with Pete. I think he's great at what he really is. So before we go, I want to remind all of you, this show is independently owned. What does that mean? Well, we rely on people like you to help support what we do. Check out the website, pushingthelimits.live. Again, that's pushingthelimits.live, where we sell merchandise, shirts, hats, beanies, you name it, we sell it. And you could also donate. Right on the front page, there's a donate button. And also, I will announce that I was at the official gaming bar of Las Vegas yesterday, Jackson's Bar and Grill. Had a great time. Had probably the best steak I've had in a very long time at Jackson's. I actually met a listener who was there who just recognized my voice. So that was kind of cool. And I'm forgetting his name. My apologies. But he was out there because of listening to me. And I can tell you, Jackson's is great promotions. I got my free bottle of wine for playing a machine there on Mondays and Wednesdays. Got my free prime rib, and it's a great gaming bar. Please check them out and support what we do here, because they support what we do. Jackson's Bar and Grill, located at Flamingo and Jones. My thanks to comedian Pete Dominic, who took the time to come on the show. We're going to have some more special guests that are going to be joining us on the show tomorrow. Check out my YouTube page, which is growing by the day, at PTL Radio Show. And as I mentioned before, and I mentioned again, we got some big announcements for this show coming up here by the end of the year. So you're going to want to stay tuned for that. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. We'll see you tomorrow, same time, same place.
Hey, everybody, are you struggling to find a pizza place that reminds you of Brooklyn? That true blue New York style pie? Well, worry no more. Stallone's Italian